unlocking your world of creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. This episode is brought to you by White Cloud Coffee Roasters, nestled in the heart of Idaho's mountain wilderness, where every bean tells a story of adventure. Discover the difference in their premium beans, meticulously roasted to capture the essence of the mountains. Now, listeners of our podcast can get an exclusive 10% discount. Just use the promo code CREATIVITY at checkout. Visit whitecloudcoffee.com and use the code CREATIVITY.
Welcome back, friends, to our podcast, Your World of Creativity. We dive into the minds of innovators and creators and industry disruptors all over the world. And today we're going to be talking about restaurant management combined with, overlapping with technology. So this combination of technology and hospitality is going to be a lot of fun. My guest is Geordy Murphy. He's founder of FobeSoft, a game-changing software bringing restaurateurs into the future. Geordy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here.
Those of us in the restaurant industry, and I have this small little role in a coffee shop in the outskirts of Idaho. So I don't know if I can be called a restaurateur by any stretch of the imagination, but restaurateurs certainly know the challenge of keeping up with shifting costs and evolving trends and maintaining customer experiences and expectations. And we're really looking forward to talking to you about how to make a profit doing that and getting some real financial insights into the way our shops operate. Maybe we can make smarter decisions and get some better margins. Geordy, when we think about restaurants, they're famous for razor-thin margins. We talk about financial blind spots. How does this FobeSoft software help make real-time data-driven decisions?
Fobe, F-O-B-E-S-O-F-T, Fobe's food and beverage software. And the restaurant industry, as you probably know, is notoriously a rear view mirror business. You operate for a month and then you turn around to an accountant. Hopefully the accountant or the bookkeeper knows restaurant accounting, because there's a large majority that don't calculate some of the costs correctly. And they look back and they said, did we make money last month? By that time, you're a week into the next month. So if you have any issues, those have compounded and gone into the next month. So what we do at FobeSoft is we give the restaurateur or the client a daily profit and loss statement that runs next to a budget that runs month to day. So every single day, when you start the first, on the second, third, fourth, on the 7th of the month, you could say, this is where I am compared to my budget where I should be. And as you go, and it's giving you insights. It's either red or green. So if you're hitting the budget, it's green. And you want everything to be green, but that's not necessarily the case. Mm-hmm. So when it turns red, it means you have opportunity. So, and it gives you days and weeks to solve any of those issues that you potentially have, to where you can manage to the bottom line and hit the budget for the month. And in doing that, it also helps with your cash flow, because you know how much money you're spending. You know how much money you have to spend, because you need a baseline. You know, if you have to hire a manager and the manager was like, salesperson comes in, I guess I need 3 of these and 4 of those and 6 of these, but he might not have much in his budget. Mm-hmm. So what they can do is they can project that. You can look from the 1st to the 7th and say, okay, my kitchen manager or my chef has this much money to spend on food. And then as you go through the week, you can see how it's being used, et cetera. Yes. Labor. Yeah, that's what we do. And we're the only platform out there that gives a restaurant a full profit and loss statement every single day.
Yeah.
Now, to do that, we had to break a few accounting practices, because you have the accountant that wants to wait to the end of the month and adjust the categories. For instance, like you're waiting for your gas bill, your electric bill, your telephone. But you know what those costs run every month. So we plug that little piece in every single day. Well, you can calculate your front of house and back of the house, salary, your labor. So we build in the management. A little piece goes in every single day. We have your workman's comp. We have your payroll tax. So you're getting a true labor figure every day. Mm-hmm. We brought a client on, and the way we got him was, I said, I was talking to him about restaurants. I said, "You get a labor figure every day?" And he says, "Oh, I know what it is every day." And I said, "With your management and the whole load, et cetera?" And he's, "Oh, yeah, I just take my front of house and back of the house labor and double it, and I get close." Well, that's not quite close enough, but it worked. And what we also do is we break the profit and loss statement into 4 different categories. So you have your cost of goods, you have your labor, you have your controllables, and your non-controllables. Now, any restaurateur, if they focused on their cost of goods, can find a point. And if you concentrate on your labor, you can find a point. In your controllables, you can find at least a point, because that's your dish machine, your towels, your restaurant supplies, your kitchen supplies that are just people just throw them in a catch-all category, but we break them all out. And then with your non-controllables, you can definitely find a point, be it in your credit card, are you paying too much for your liability insurance? So if we can do that and find a point in 4 categories and you're making 10% profit, we've gotten you to 14% profit.
Mhm.
And it only takes 10 or 15 minutes a day, because what we do, I'm talking too much here.
It's interesting. You're talking about a lot of dials, and I love the fact that you brought in this word controllable because there's many days where you say there's nothing that can be controlled. I got the price of eggs. I got coffee tariffs. I got labor. Somebody called in sick. It's all this stuff. But yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of tracking that you can project more of these things than you think you can.
Well, especially when you know what they are every day, because otherwise you're just guessing. And sometimes when you get in those 4 walls, you don't necessarily know where to turn. I might have my cost of goods is high. Like you mentioned, the coffee or whatever. What do I do? What do I do? We have a support team that you can call as much as you want.
Mm.
And they're all ex-restaurateurs. They're all, like top level general managers or up, district managers, et cetera. And they pretty much have the answers. And we've got hundreds and hundreds of restaurants on our form. So we see if it's a barbecue restaurant and they're running a 46 or 47% food cost because the price of meat's high, we could turn around and say, we've got these 6 barbecue restaurants over here that are running a 39, 38% food cost. There's a big difference right there. So how can we help this person get their food costs down? Is it district cost? Is it waste? Is it pilferage? And these are the ideas, or these are what we bring up in when you're using FobeSoft.
Yes. And to bring back maybe the hospitality and experience side beyond the numbers for a moment, you're talking about comparing similar restaurants and similar concepts, but yeah, this idea of creating the experience is really what differentiates so many restaurants. How do you combine this idea of financial management with crafting a really great dining experience that a restaurateur can be successful in?
I go back to my years in San Francisco when I worked with the Kimpton Group. I took over a restaurant that was annualized at less than $2 million, losing a couple $100,000 a year. It was in one of the Kimpton hotels, but it looks like they're separate. But early in my career, I worked for Club Corporations of America. And at the time, CCA, when a member would come in, you had to use their name 3 times throughout the dining experience. And what that does is it not only, and you can see if a person's walking in and you say, "Hey, Mark," and all of a sudden your shoulders go back and I've been noticed. It's just natural. But when you do that and say the front guy or the restaurateur, you start not only learning your customers' names, you're making them feel better,
Mhm.
and you're establishing a clientele. Now that's the piece of let's build the business and let's keep the business going. Occasionally you said, like when I work with Wolf, he'd say, "Send them a pizza, put the good caviar on." We would have a kilo of Ocetra caviar in the kitchen. We had nothing on the menu, caviar, but we would put it on this smoked salmon pizza. And you send somebody something like that, it's just a little here or there, and that's what creates the clientele. Now, behind the scenes, when you're watching your financial management, like that kilo of caviar, we would put into promotion. Didn't go against food costs. It didn't go, but it was a promotional thing. It was like advertising, and it was the best advertising you could do. But you still I would still operate in kind of the FobeSoft way from cost of goods, labor, controllables, and non-controllables. And I would track them every day. And then on Mondays, I would sit down with my managers. One would be in charge of the bar. I knew how much they had spent so far. We had it like at Coletto's in San Francisco. We would buy 100 cases of wine a month for wine for the rest program. That's how busy this restaurant. But I would watch how much wine are you buying? What did you spend so far? Could you look at the cash flow thing? For the chef, it's like, what's your labor running? What's your food costs run? And when you have that information every single week, people are conscious of it. Because if someone's running around as you get in those four walls 30, 31 days a month, if you're not conscious of it, you're just going along, stuff's going to get out of hand because it's a business of pennies. And the old adage, watch the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves, which is true. But there's so many different categories. Santa Client was very interesting. The restaurant did $1.5 million, which is pretty good. And they had one category called supply. They had $360,000 in supply for a year. Now ask them where that $360,000 went.
Right. What kind of supply are we talking about?
Right. But that's 20%
Yes.
of the restaurant, of the restaurants. So what we did right off the bat, let's do a budget with $260,000 and put it in all these different categories. We saved them $100,000 whoosh like that. You talk to the chef. Can you get by with $800 or $900 a month in your kitchen supply? Guy's like, oh my gosh, no problem. The restaurant manager, can you get by with $500 or $600 a month? No problem. All of a sudden, when you break it all up, right there, then the restaurant has become a lot more profitable. And there's numerous situations like that. Because if you look at Matthew, one of my partners says, the industry today is the general manager was like the best server that showed up every day, the conscious, smart person, but they've never been taught financials of the restaurant. So all of a sudden they're getting, here are the keys to a $2-3 million business, and here's the checkbook. I mean, if nobody's ever taught them what to do with it,
Yes.
it's a little more difficult. So we organize people, restaurants, and we show them where they should be. And it's simple. Like I said, it's red or green.
That's so interesting. And like any business, especially creative businesses, and as I mentioned at the outset, we talked to all sorts of industries, but certainly everything is changing. There's new trends that we've got to watch out for. In the restaurant business that you're in, Geordy, what periscope a little bit? Look over the horizon. What do you see that we need to be keeping an eye out for?
I think one of the things that is not happening today is the training of the restaurateurs that are coming up. Because I think it was lost way back in the day. If you were in the hotel business, you went to work for Hyatt. They didn't pay you anything. But you go to work for Hyatt for 2 or 3 years, every other hotel in the country wants to hire you because you had the Hyatt training.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're lacking today. Even some of the big corporations, they walk in and they hand somebody a dashboard on a piece of paper that says, here's where you stand financially. And the person they look at a piece of paper and get, but they don't really understand it. And that's where I think that from a culinary standpoint, a lot of the kids' creativity, someone goes to work for a great chef, Jose Andres or Wolfgang or whatever, they're going to learn cuisine over time and they're going to become a good chef. But are they going to know when they create that great dish that it's running a decent food cost? Because that's what it is. There's the creativity part, but you're not in it totally for fun. You're in it to make money. So I think the training is a huge piece that's lacking in the industry. Some of the big corporations just have parameters in place and they have little robots that walk in, unlock, count the money, put it in the drawer. At the end of the day, count the money, put it in the safe, you lock the door and go home. With a little bit of knowledge, that person should help make you more profitable.
Yes.
If you look at, there's a chef named Evan Funky. He owns a restaurant in LA called Felix. It's the hottest restaurant in LA. It's like the best pasta guy in the country. He's got 3 or 4 other restaurants called Mother Wolf. His first restaurant, they spent $3.5 million. The story is on Netflix right now, on Netflix Master Chef Pasta, I think it's called. And they asked Evan, they said, what happened in your first restaurant? They spent $3.5 million and went out of business. He said, nobody ever taught him the financial. So he's in there blowing and going. They spend all this money on this restaurant and he had no idea. So he buckled down and learned the financials, and he's got 4 or 5 thriving restaurants now. The same with Jose Andres. Jose Andres has 40 plus restaurants throughout the world. He runs the World Kitchen that goes and helps distress like Puerto Rico, and he helped in LA after the fires. He was on a podcast 4 or 5 months ago, and they said, what's the most important thing you can tell a young restaurateur? He said, before you learn to cook, before you learn how to build anything, learn the financial. It's the most important piece of the business because it's different. Restaurant accounting is different from manufacturing accounting and your retail store accounting, et cetera, because we figure out the cost of goods different. Well, we had a client recently that we sat down with, and he said, I got my food costs under control. I'm running at 31% food cost. And I said, you're right. You're running at 31% food cost off your total sales. But your food cost off your food sales, which is the way it should be calculated, was 42%. And it's 10 points higher than he thought it was. And he didn't know.
He didn't know.
Because his bookkeeper didn't know.
Mhm.
And we see numerous situations like that.
It's so interesting. And this misconception you were talking about, you can be a great chef, but you've got to learn the business side. But I think that we've been talking about the digital side, the innovation side, the data side. A lot of us creatives in general are hesitant or reticent even to embrace data-driven technology. What insights do you have to make this more approachable, to make this more something that we want to embrace?
What we did is we made it simple. Here again, I have a client that said, not only did you make my restaurant more profitable, you turned my manager into an operator. And what we've done is it's not sitting behind the desk for 45 minutes or an hour, entering invoices and changing the price of pork for that day. And all these things that come up with, there's platforms out there that are going to tell you that the price of your burger went up. But you look at it and you go, oh, I went from running a 28% on my burger to a 34% on my burger. That's nice to know, but what are you going to do? Go change the price of the menu that day? No, you're not going to. You're going to try to get the price of the meat back down. But what we've done is we've made it simple. We import food, beer, wine, liquor, merchandise sales from your point of sale system. So there's no entry there, it automatically comes in. We import your front of house and back of the house labor from whatever labor app you use or the point of sale system. So that shows up every single day. We build the salaries behind in the background. So that gets populated every day. And depending on the state, we put your workman's comp and your payroll taxes in there. Then what we do, if say you're a Cisco or US Foods or whatever customer, when the invoice hits you, it hits us at the same time. And we built a piece of AI that reads the invoice and parses it to the correct sum. So there's no entry there. So that's about 95%. It's automatically going in. Now, if you have a person that say makes muffins for you every day because they're the best muffins in the world, and they come in and they write on 4 dozen muffins on a napkin, all you do is take a picture of that, and with the piece of AI we built, it goes to the cloud and parses to the cell. It only needs to read that napkin one time and it's 7% accurate. So as opposed to saying that we're turning, to answer your question, a creative restaurateur into a say, techie type person, there's not a lot of techie from that side involved. We're taking care of these pieces. The important piece is to have that information. Is it red or green? How's your food cost? You can see it right there. How's your labor run? Are you in budget with all your controllables? So we've taken a big piece of that out to make it more approachable. There's other platforms out there that you're going to need to hire a bookkeeper or somebody that's going to be entering invoices and changing stuff every single day. And some of them are good. I'm not bashing anybody. I'm just saying we made it simple for the restaurateur that maybe hasn't been trained, or even the ones that have been.
Oh, that's terrific. Geordy, we also love to explore creativity from the angle of the entrepreneur and the innovator like yourself. I think about the stories that you've been telling about how you came up in the business and your early career, but your creative approach, how you added, you plussed up the data, you plussed up the accounting, you plussed up the business side. What really sparked your curiosity from the restaurateur perspective?
I just love the business. I love to cook. Of course, like anybody, a lot of people that get in the business, it's the interaction every day with people. When I was lucky enough to work with a lot of the, say, celebrity chefs that are out there today and saw the creativity and saw the different way things are done. And I just enjoyed that creative part of it. When I was in college, I put myself through college. I used to make jackets out of leather jackets that were hand laced and hand sewn. And I sold a bunch when I was in college at Fort Lewis and Durango, Colorado, which helped me get through school. And today I still cook. I cook pretty much every night. But it's the creativity piece. And it's also from a design standpoint. Like when I left San Francisco, I was a partner in a group of 6 Asian noodle restaurants. You get a 2,500 square foot space, and how are we going to get as many seats as we can in here, yet still make it comfortable and still make the kitchen functional? We had one that was it was in the Sony Metreon. It was 1,650 square feet, and we did $2.3 million out of it. It was called Long Life Noodle Company, and they used to refer to it as Long Line.
Right, elbow to elbow in there.
That was just for someone to find a seat. And when you have 5 woks, because with a wok, you can cook food. And one of my partners, George, I mean, he was very creative from the Asian food standpoint. So yeah, I was in doing stuff like that, figuring out the puzzle for the space, or how are we going to design the menu, or how are we going to put things on the menu that are affordable yet still creative. And people not think that you're charging too much for them at the time.
Right. And then how do you stay creative? How do you keep the spark alive and stay up to date in this fast-paced industry?
I think anymore today, you see so much stuff on Instagram, and I follow a bunch of different chefs from a design standpoint. I look at the new restaurants, excuse me, that have opened. But there's plenty of stuff out there. And I have a lot of chef friends. A friend of mine, D. Leroy, who was Wolfgang's best friend growing up. D and I talk 3 or 4 times a week. He's retired and lives in South Georgia. I live in North Florida. So it's like, what are you cooking? What are you doing? He'll fix your lost.
Oh, fantastic.
Or like last Saturday, we had 3 other couples over for dinner when I cooked the 3-course. A really nice meal. It's stuff like that. I get sparked because when you do something like that, you got to put it on the calendar 2 or 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
So for those 2 or 3 weeks, am I going to do braised short rib? Should I do a piece of fish? And you start thinking about, okay, if I'm going to do, say, a piece of fish, how am I going to do it? What am I going to put with it, etc. And it turned out great.
Oh, fantastic. Folks, my guest has been Geordy Murphy. We've been talking about this intersection of technology and hospitality, and it's just been great talking to you, Geordy.
Pleasure talking with you too, Mark.
And great learning about your program. Tell us where we can learn more about FobeSoft and connect with you.
It's FobeSoft.com, FobeSoft.com. And my email is GEO as in Geordy, GEO at FobeSoft.com.
Oh, fantastic. We'll put all those links in the show notes, listeners, so you can find those. So thanks again for joining us. And before we go, I guess we need to give a big thank you to our sponsor, White Cloud Coffee Roasters. Boy, we've been talking about the restaurant business, and White Cloud Coffee certainly likes to brew up and roast up quality coffee for cafes and restaurants and hospitality all over. And listeners, you can enjoy a 10% discount on your order at whitecloudcoffee.com. Just use the code CREATIVITY at checkout. And of course, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to rate and review and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us bring more inspiring guests like Geordy onto the show. So Geordy Murphy, thanks again for sharing FobeSoft and all your restaurant stories and how to make money doing something we love. In every creative industry, we want
Thank
to
you, Mark.
Great meeting you.
I
Hope we
really
can stay in
enjoyed it.
touch. Yes. And thanks, listeners, for listening. And until next time, keep creating and keep unlocking your world of creativity. We'll see you next time.